Hi.
Hi, Kelsey.
How are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
So good to see your face.
It is so good to see you again.
Your hair makes me miss my hair.
And your hair makes me want to chop all of mine off.
Do it. Do it.
We'll be twinning.
Yes, as more than we already are.
Yes. Well, I am so excited to welcome and introduce the host of Confidently Insecure podcast, best-selling author, currently writing her second book on chronic pain, and celebrity TN advocate, Kelsey Darragh.
Oh my gosh. Hi. Thanks so much for having me. And right back at you. You are the host of this, and you're amazing, and TN Warrior, and you're great. And thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. It is a big moment for our community as you are our celebrity advocate.
Y'all got to get higher standards.
I think, well, we all think it's just incredible what you're doing, spreading the word about you having TN and all of us having TN. So why don't you go ahead and tell us your TN story for those of us who haven't heard it before?
Sure. Yeah. So I hear a lot of TN stories. People DM me and message me. And while there are so many various ways of getting TN, I never considered all the ways that people could get TN, essentially. I didn't know it could come from a dentist visit. I didn't know that it could come from genetics. I didn't know you could be more predisposed as a woman. There are just so many things that I'm learning now that I was like, why don't most people know about TN? Because it seems to be a thing that can happen to anybody just with a dentist checkup. And it took me quite a long time to get my diagnosis. I had a jaw surgery in 2015. I had previous jaw surgeries before, but it was the one in 2015 that during surgery, either a nerve was nicked or overstretched. And I woke up out of that surgery in way more pain than I had gone in. And I was told to wait a few days. Of course, I was on the mend and healing, and I had just had facial trauma surgery. So, of course it was going to be painful. But then about 5 days after the surgery, we realized the pain wasn't going down and my bite wasn't correct. And so the surgeon said, we're going to go back in. I've never had to do this in all my 20 years. And, I should have known that was like a huge red flag. But at the time I know anyone that's here watching knows and totally can understand that you put your trust in these people that tell you they know what they're doing. And so you listen to them. And
exactly.
Went back in the surgery. And so whether the nerve got, overstretched again in that moment, we'll never really know because it's very hard there's only symptoms after with TN. You can't really ever pinpoint the moment of a nerve injury.
Exactly.
So yeah, I like I said, I had the surgery at the beginning of 2015, and then I started my job at BuzzFeed where, my face was a completely different face still. I was still healing. I was still flying back and forth to my doctor to get checkups. And every time I would go, I would mention this pain, and I just kept being told like it's post-surgery, it's, a trauma, it's going to heal. And there was a spidey sense in me that I think all people here with TN understand, where I just absolutely know that was not, the answers
right.
I was getting was not reflective of my experience. And
exactly.
So I had to do my own digging and my own research to realize that not only had I gotten TN from this surgery, but that I also have what's called Anesthesia Dolorosa, which is the infinite numbness, burning pain sensation in my chin and lower face. So I've got the daily experience is with the AD, but I get the flares of the TN, I say luckily, because I know there are so many other people that are in a more unfortunate situation that have to deal with the flare-ups a lot more often. But I've been to that hell that I think anyone here following or knows someone that has experienced TN. I've been there and been back. And like I said, it just, I can't not talk about it. It's something
exactly.
that affects so much of me. And, with what I do for a living, I talk a lot about myself. And what I discovered was this huge community of people that reached out to me afterwards and just had questions and, oh my gosh, I think I have this too, or my mom just got diagnosed, or someone I love just got diagnosed, and what do I do and where do I turn? And I was like, okay, there's not enough resources, there are not enough questions being answered, and there's not enough experts in this freaking world, forget even being covered by insurance, to look at something like that. And so, you know, I always say, and I always try to be honest with people, like, I'm still very much in the thick of it. I'm not cured. I'm not necessarily doing any better physically than I was the day I got out of surgery. But I think mentally I've had to come to terms with the diagnosis and the lived experience of chronic pain. And, you know, what can I do to, you know, showcase my experience and maybe help someone else or give someone else hope, or at least showcase that there are alternative options out there. So that's
exactly
my answer. Long story long.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. And not to say that AD is even more rare than TN. And there's a whole community of, you know, people with AD out there that have experienced it, you know, like you did, or post MVD. So just you spreading the word about that, you know, gets a lot of awareness out too. So thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you.
We have talked about your kind of journey with doctors and procedures and things you've tried. And I think it was really enlightening for me, because I told you offline that when I have this fantasy of, if I have access to the top medical doctors, the top neurosurgeon, what if I just had more money to get this certain procedure done or try this certain thing? I'm just going to be better.
Right.
Can you kind of touch and tell the rest of the community kind of what your experience is having your little celeb status and, you know, having access to things that other people might not have?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you, TN does not give a flip what you do for a living. The doctors don't give a shit what you do for a living. They, you know, I don't mean to put down doctors, but just in my personal experience, I've definitely run into a lot of doctors who, you're just a number, you're just a data point, you're just part of their treatment that they know works. And if you don't fit into their box, then they can't help you. I've rarely found a very like strong relationship and you know, prolific experience with a doctor where I've been like, you get it, you understand. You know, I'm lucky enough to have health insurance. I definitely have a platform where I can, you know, reach out and maybe get a feedback or an answer quicker than the average folk. But again, when it comes to followers, I would almost even say sometimes doctors are less inclined to speak to me because they're fearful of what I might say on the internet. So as great as it's like, hey, I might be able to afford this doctor, they might not want to see me or even take me on with care. And but that being aside, like I completely recognize my privilege with just being able to stay afloat in the healthcare industry. I have considered myself sort of this like conduit in the community where you know, when I worked at BuzzFeed, I had access to try things for videos. Like I tried crystal healing. I got to fly to Florida to try laser therapy. Most recently, I've been doing microdosing and I'm looking into ketamine injections. Like there definitely are things that I think just being in LA too, the wellness community is a little bit more vocal of people in pain are like, we're going to fix this and we're going to find something. And, you know, if someone told me tomorrow that like a place in India or Sweden could probably cure this, I would go, you know, like I would refinance something or try and like work over. Like the money aspect of TN is something I don't think we talk enough about, like whatsoever. Like we do not talk about that enough with the financial burden that having like a rare facial pain, you know, illness, disease, whatever you want to call it, has on like our mental health too, you know?
Exactly. And well, and like you said, that the lengths we're willing to go, the money that we're willing to spend to try to get even 10 minutes of relief. It's just insane. I know you have your microdosing experience on YouTube, which has been so nice to see, you know, as it's not accessible here in Oregon quite yet, but it is coming. So it's kind of nice to watch your experience and, you know, see, obviously all of our experiences are different, even though we have the same diagnosis, but it's nice for you to use your platform to show us different methods and techniques that we can use too.
Sure.
So thanks for doing that.
Thanks for creating a platform for me to come talk about it.
Of course. So what are some of your favorite self-care activities when you're dealing with a TN flare?
You know, it's so funny. Like, I would never wish this upon anyone, right? But in this weird backward ass way, and maybe some people here can agree or understand this, is like, I had to become painfully self-aware and like painfully, no pun intended, self-advocating. And I don't know who I would be kind of without this. And I don't know if it's better or worse. You know, maybe I'd be like running literal 5Ks if I didn't have this, or like, you know, a freaking full-time skier. I don't know if I could be or whatever. But also maybe I'd be miserable, drug addict, like money obsessed asshole that like a lot of people turn into when they don't have any like grounding presence in their life. And I think what TN has forced me to do is realize, you know, there's a lot that I have to do for myself. Like, of course I can say, you know, reaching out to another TN warrior or like reaching out to my partner or family. Like sometimes I just want to be heard that I'm in a lot of pain. And while that helps, that's not doing anything for me mentally or physically. Like maybe just getting that empathy. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. But for self-care, this one's a little monetary value, but I will sing it from the high heavens, is I just got a blow up jacuzzi in my backyard. I used all my Amex points. So like I can't fly home for Thanksgiving because I used all my Amex points on this fucking jacuzzi.
Sorry, Mom, I got a hot tub.
Yes, and worth it. Like, sorry, Mom, this jacuzzi was way worth it. But like being able to like stabilize my central nervous system, because when you're in constant chronic pain, your brain is sending signals all the time. And like, it's like a light switch is turned on, and whatever we can do to just turn it off even for a second, whether that's distraction, you know, like I try talking about a subject that's not about pain, or like I go for a walk and I, you know, call a friend and ask how their problems are, you know, like get my mind off of myself. So definitely I love anything that's like a regulating my sensory nervous system to just bring everything down. So stimulating my vagus nerve with cold water, using CBD oils. I know a lot of people like to smoke the THC vape. I'm not personally a THC user, but there is a body love friendship relationship that has to be so soothed in those moments of pain, because all that comes is like anger and frustration. And so anything I can do to say, I have to give my body, do what I need to feel okay right now, whatever that is. And, you know, I say this like in jest, but like if it's ketamine, maybe it is ketamine. And I have a lot of friends who I've been connecting with that are doing ketamine assisted therapy for their chronic pain. And it's a natural anesthetic. So it's a way for them to actually like kind of leave their bodies for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think you have to be careful if you're ever working with people with like alcohol or drug abuse problems. But if you're someone like that is so desperate, like I know many of us have been in that position, you kind of will go, what do I need right now today? You know, there's been times where I've called my guy who does my Botox and he's given me injections of lidocaine, even if it's only 20 minutes, you know, it's 20 minutes and I'm able to calm down, and, you know, breathing exercises, or like, I know it's hard to even think about doing literally anything when you're in the worst of it. But for me personally, I know if I'm sitting in it mentally, I'm going to feel it more because my awareness is there. So if there's anything I can do to get out of my body again, regulate that nervous system, those are always going to be my first tips.
I feel that. How do you handle your mental health with TN and AD and all of that?
Yeah, I didn't realize that I became agoraphobic after my surgery. You know, I'd always dealt with high anxiety, panic disorder, and, you know, depression. Your classic three, your millennial three. But I started to really fear leaving my house because I felt like I could get attacked somewhere, you know,
Yeah.
on vacation, on set. Oh my God, I was so terrified of getting a job. And what if that's the one day? And I would get so mad at myself for that fear because I almost felt like I was manifesting it. And I know that
Yes.
sounds kind of like witchy, but like
Yeah.
the fear itself can perpetuate that thought cycle, and your brain is fucking powerful. And so it took me years to kind of get out of that agoraphobic feeling. And, you know, the thing I say all the time, and people might have heard me say this before, is like, well, I'd rather have a TN attack in Thailand on the beach with people I love than like sitting at home. And sometimes that's true. And then sometimes I'm like, no, I need to be at home, like in my, you know, comfortable weighted blanket or whatever.
Yeah.
So for my mental health, it's been therapy weekly. I've tried chronic pain specialists before. I've tried, you know, at Cedars and UCLA pain clinic. I've done hypnotherapy. I've done neurofeedback therapy. I've done just myofascial work. I mean, massage, all the regular stuff, to try and keep my mind in a good place, because I do think it's powerful enough to trigger your body to think and feel a certain way. And that's a very hard thing to say to people with TN, because I don't want people to think that I'm saying like it's all in your head, or like, you know, you're making it worse for yourself. But I feel like you have to be more than your TN, because if you're not, it will consume you. And anyone that's had a flare up knows exactly what I'm talking about with that. Like, you'll just, that's it. That's all your existence can be. And so for me, it's really about finding identity outside of TN, like as often as I can, even in my mental health.
Yeah, I think that's so important to identify yourself outside of TN and remember that you are someone outside of TN.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that you said that.
Mm.
If you could go back to your newly diagnosed TN self, what would you tell her?
Oh, you wish it would be something like, you're going to feel better. You know, like, oh, you're going to find this amazing doctor and this great team and like, oh, these treatments. And it's like, okay, the reality is like, no one ever promised that life was going to be easy. But I think who you are to the world is made through tough experiences, and it's about getting through those tough times that make you a person. Whereas like in the early stages, I think I was very consumed by it and fearful of it and afraid of it at all times, and like just it drove everything I did, how I got dressed, how I got to work, how I did meetings, how I scheduled talking to people. Like, getting that fear, past that fear, I think is probably what I would want to tell my earlier self, is like, you don't need to be so afraid of it. And
Wow.
if you can kind of like separate yourself from that fear and turn off that fear center, you can see through the fog a little bit. And I haven't tried MDMA assisted therapy yet, but I just went to a conference on psychedelics, and there was a lot of conversation about chronic pain and illness. And there was a lot of conversation about how MDMA assisted therapy can turn off that pain center, or excuse me, not that pain center, that fear center.
Oh,
and
wow.
how for, you know, more subconscious healing to kind of like come through. And I think you can have a more honest conversation with yourself or a therapist when you're not so fearful of this thing being like the life ruiner that it certainly can feel like and be.
Exactly. I totally agree with you, because that's how I was too. I feel like I was fighting it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to accept it. And I think that advice of not being afraid of it when you're newly diagnosed is so important,
Mm-hmm.
and so important to your mental health too.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
How do you travel with TN? How do you bring your medications? How do you make yourself comfortable?
Yes,
How do
100%.
you do it?
I made a BuzzFeed video about this, and there's another one coming out, because even though I don't work for them anymore, I still make videos sometimes. Like, I'll freelance, make videos for them. And that was one of the ones I did recently, was like, okay, there is just a different checklist that people in chronic pain have. And it's usually more expensive. It usually costs more money. You usually have to upgrade. You have to find better hotels with nicer amenities, with better pillows, with a better bathtub. Like, there are just things that I would have never thought about as like a young, crazy, wild youth, that I just also didn't give a shit about, probably. That to me, I'm like, these are non-negotiables. If you want me to come to your fucking wedding, I need to be able to have like this amount of space. I need to be able to have this amount of time off. I need to have this amount of time to decompress, to like reset. I would love to have like space to do yoga. I would love, and it makes you sound kind of like foofy.
Yeah.
But if someone wants to have that conversation about living with chronic pain with me and why I need to travel this way, happy to do so, you know?
Exactly.
And no one ever wants to step into that ring. Sorry. But there's like little things that I've done, you know, like, not to push any brands or anything, but like To Me bags have been a game changer for like how much stuff I can bring in a travel case. You know, it has space and pockets for certain, like the backpacks are unbelievable. I can have like my heating pad in this pocket, and like my meds in this, and my cool patches here, my CBD in this. And like, I'm just the more organized I can be about traveling, and the more I can prep, then the safer I feel that I have that safety net there as backup in case, you know, God.
Yeah. Does flying cause flares for you? It's horrible for me.
I've probably had like 2 or 3 flights. It's hard to tell because I just assume barometric pressure does it.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes it'll be when I'm like, right now I'm in upstate New York, and sometimes like the snow fall will do it worse than a plane ride.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I can't really pinpoint what kind of pressure or like what volume of pressure does it.
Yeah.
But I've had like 2 or 3 flights where I thought my eyeballs were going to explode out of my face, where I was like, you know, calling a doctor on board. And they're like, do you want some Sudafed? And I'm like, do I want some Sudafed? That's so cute. I'm like, how about you give me all the liquor you have on your little cart, and then wake me up when we're there.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. Have you experienced anything that would, like, any negative experiences traveling with TN that kind of is like a warning sign for newly diagnosed TN travelers?
That's interesting. I mean, my TN does not, I don't recognize the signs that I hear a lot of people talk about, like wind or like my hair rubbing against my face. Like, mine does not feel very external. Mine feels very internal.
Okay.
Mine feels very much like from the inside out. So I can kind of feel a tightness, or I'll feel a shock. But I know that that's not typical. I know a lot of people more so get it from like a brushing teeth or like a compression or a pressure. But for me, mine definitely comes more inside out. And it's not like I get too much of a warning sign.
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
It's a very like sudden ramp up.
So that's even worse because you don't know what triggers it or when it's coming on. That's so stressful.
You never know. And like the first time I ever had a flare, it felt like it was coming. It would wake me up in the middle of the night. Like, it was that bad. And I remember calling my dad at like 3 a.m. He's like, is everything okay? I was like, this pain is just not like what I know I normally have chronic pain, but this is like, it's waking me up out of my sleep. And I thought, well, it can't get any worse than this. And boy, did I eat those fucking words, because it got way worse. And so that was the only time, you know, that. And then I've had 2 stellate ganglion blocks where they go in through the front of your neck. They put you to sleep and they go and they put a nerve block that flared up once. So I kind of could like tell then the doctor was also kind of like, this sometimes can flare it and sometimes not. And that just goes to show you the fact that I was like willing to risk a flare just to try, like,
yep,
the desperation. It's like, you could just, that even just goes to show. But yeah, it again, like, I've tried to take the fear of it, you know, coming out of nowhere out of my life, because I find that if I live my life according to my TN, I'm not living, you know, like, I have to live and let my TN kind of follow and deal with it as it comes.
I love that. That's so powerful.
Thanks.
I mean, this kind of goes into my next question, but I think you kind of answered it already. Do you have panger moments? How do you deal with the anger of TN? A lot of us are just like, why the fuck is this happening to me? I don't deserve this. This is really the rest of my life. How do you, I mean, other than therapy and, you know, what kind of gets you through it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be not a human if I didn't have those moments, you know, like, I can advocate and say, like, you know, live above it and don't fear, but I'd like be lying if I also said that there weren't like horrific, awful time. Like, you know, for me, it's 7 or 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and it's like, I've been doing a podcast all day and I've been doing this, and I'm like, it's time for me to wind down, and like, but there's this something else that kind of feels worth it. You know, it's like having this conversation. It's like, there's something that replaces that anger. And it's the moments where I'm not busy when I really find myself being very frustrated. Like, when I don't have something to distract me, or I don't have a project going on to focus on, or like, you know, if I have too much time to notice my pain and sit in it, I'm like, then, you know, I cry a lot about it still. And I share my struggles with people who might not get it. And sometimes that makes me sadder too, where I'm just like, you love me and you support me, but like, you'll never really actually understand this. And like, that makes me really angry too. Because you can't wish this upon anyone. You wouldn't want to wish this upon anyone. But I stay away from this is the way my life is forever, because I noticed when I thought of it too in the macro, not good. If I think this is the way the rest of my life will be, not good. I have to think of it that we live in a generation that has like created Teslas, and like, we've been to the moon for like funsies, and like, you know, that we have like Dyson robot vacuums. Like, you know, I was like, the speed at which technology and treatments are advancing so rapidly, you know, it's like 10x each generation. So I say this with faith and confidence that I do believe, like, in my lifetime, I will be out of pain. I don't know that it's going to be through not having TN. Like, maybe, you know, I still will feel these zaps, but I believe I will experience a treatment that allows me to better manage. So whether it's, I always say, like, Elon Musk, implant that chip into my brain, go for it. I'll try anything. Or like, I become a monk and I go like meditate in the woods half the year. I just think I'm the type of person that is never going to lose faith in the idea that there are people out there working for the betterment of people. And I don't know if you noticed this, but I find like a lot of doctors or advocates have like people in their lives that experience TN. Like, they don't just kind of stumble into facial pain as a hobby. Like, as part of their doctoral choices. They're like, I want to go into that really impossible one where people are like really fucked up. Like, so I do feel like the more we get this out and the more we talk about it and the more that people find out about the name, even the more people are going to be like, wait, what? That's the worst pain in the world. And we haven't figured out a cure for that, but we have like 20 different medications for erectile dysfunction. There's like something, like, we've got to find the betterment and like the quality of life to be more important at some point. And I believe, and I'm trying to be careful with my words, like, I believe that will happen. Yeah.
I love that. I love that hope is keeping you going, and that you're not going to give up, because even though you said, even if there isn't a cure, there's going to be some treatment that will help you overcome TN and overcome the flares. And I think that is so powerful for all of us because there isn't a cure. And a lot of people can't even say trigeminal neuralgia.
No, I can't.
And what we're doing is so important for that cure to happen. So thank you again. I keep saying it, but thank you.
Back at you. What sticks to me bounces off of you, or whatever the hell that phrase.
Yes, right. Let me go through some of the questions here that people had for you. What is some advice you have for newly diagnosed people's support team to help foster understanding and patience for both sides?
Whew, what a question. I think it starts with yourself. Like, you have to have sort of this like searching moral inventory is the word that they use in AA, but I don't even do AA. So that's just like something I know that's a word. But like, you have to have a radical honesty about setting limits and boundaries, because what we do is we hold it in, and like every single day of my life, I go in my head, ow, I'm in pain. Ow, this sucks. And I'm not vocalizing it, because I told, my partner or my family, I'm like, if I had to do that, I'd be talking all day long, just telling you like, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. And, there was even like a therapist once who, challenged me to not use the word pain for a week. And I was like, that's really interesting, because as badly as I'm like, I need you to understand I am in pain, what does that actually do for my community or for myself? Does it take away the pain? No. Does it provide a little bit of empathy and maybe like a softer side for someone to come and like ask how they can support me? Totally. But the words we use is very important. And so I think for newly diagnosed people, the first thing you're going to do is search on the internet, and it's going to say the worst pain in the world, the suicide disease, incurable. And you're going to be like, well, what? How am I supposed to set myself up for any success? And so I would like strongly argue to fight that narrative that is online and like create that honesty with yourself that works for you. And so again, like, someone won't know how to help you unless you know how to help yourself. And it feels a little ass backwards, because you're like, well, how am I supposed to help myself for something that's incurable? Well, okay, what are tiny little things that can help when you're in a flare? Is it a certain type of sock you really love? Is it a type of weighted blanket? Is there a binaural beats I could play? Is there like lights I could try? Is there a laser I could get you? Is there a heating pad? Is there ice? Like, just little things that you need to know, rather than just, I'm in pain and I don't know what to do. Like, you have to have self-advocacy while also, and this is the balance I struggle with, while also being able to let go of a little bit of control. Because the harder you try to control it and make it go away, sometimes it's gonna make it more present in your mind when you can't rid it away with your thoughts.
Yeah, that's so important. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of tips in your new book coming out. Do you want to talk a little bit about it? Or tell us what you can about it?
Absolutely. It's called It Fucking Hurts. And it's a workbook. It's not like a memoir or anything. I always say I don't think my life's interesting enough. I haven't lived long enough. Even though I love adventures, I have not got more status yet, but it's in the similar format to my first book, which is a workbook, split up into different sections, where it's short stories, anecdotes, essays, but also exercises, tips, tricks, journaling, interviews with experts, interviews with other spoonies, other TN warriors, and working on it right now. And I was struggling recently because I'm going through like the format of it. In my first book, I was able to do 3 sections, or like 3 big chapters. So anxiety, panic, and depression. And it was very easy to like delegate those symptoms and those treatments and exercises for those specific things. And like with chronic pain, there's just like so much.
It's like a spider web. This goes to that, and then that goes to this, and then
exactly
we're back at this thing, but we're going back to there.
Exactly. And I found myself like, my original idea was to go through the stages of grief with a chronic illness or a chronic pain, and kind of come out, you know, go in more of a linear order and say, like, this is probably where you start. You're going to kind of go through this, and like, here's where we end, and here's how we like get through it. And I felt like it was so sad and dark. And so I gathered a bunch of my spoony friends, you know, friends with spinal fusions and paralysis and, you know, a buddy ankylosing spondylitis. And I was like, I'm thinking about changing it to like mind, body, and heart. And they were like, no. They were like, fuck no, absolutely not. Like, I get the sentiment, like you're trying to separate it and like show how they all coexist, but they're like, anyone that lives with chronic pain or illness does not want to hear that bullshit. Like, they do not want the live, laugh, love version of what real lived chronic pain experience is. Like, if you think it's dark, it's because it can be. And that's what people are going to resonate with. If you're trying to like heal the collective heart and like all that bullshit, people aren't going to read it. And I was like, okay, you know what? There is something to sticking with that original thought process of doing it sort of more in that, showing the reality of it, you know, like not trying to hide the skeleton of what, you know, the experience is.
Yes, exactly. I love that they said that, because that is so true. And that, I think, is going to resonate with a lot of people. And I know I'm even more excited to read the book.
Oh, thanks. Well, you'll be getting a copy for sure.
When does it come out?
We don't have a date yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping for next year. I'm not done. Like, I'm the worst. I'm like never done. I'm like, wait, there's one more thing. Or like, I'll read a new book, or I'll get a new article about like nerve scrambling. I got an email today about nerve scrambling treatment. And I'm like, well, wait, what's that? I got to read that and look into it and like write about that. And like I said, it's so rapidly growing and changing that I'm trying to encompass the whole experience. At some point, I have to just give myself a little grace and say, like, you just have to put out the best version of what your experience is. So
exactly.
But yeah, definitely in the thick of it. I came upstate to my friend's cabin to like write and be like in it.
Ooh, that is very Sex and the City. I love it.
Very.
How the hell are you writing a book with all the brain fog and all of the symptoms, girl?
You know, a new symptom that I started to experience over COVID was ophthalmic neuralgia, which is like,
oh, that's fun.
Yeah, you know, just to add it to the menu, you know, at this point. But I started to experience just, I get migraines. I get oro with my migraines. I've had them since I was 15. I think they're hormonal. They come with periods and things like that. And so that I was kind of used to. But this would happen after like sitting at the computer for like 5 minutes. And I'd be like, oh, what the fuck is this? I'm like, yeah. And so that's been like a new thing that I didn't have when I was writing the first book that I have now, where I've had to even give myself more grace. You know, get a standing desk, get like my neuro lenses, do my eye exercises with my PT. You know, it's part of it though, right? Like even being able to write and say, I have been in pain while writing this book is real, you know?
It's too real. I love that. Is it easier, harder to write the second one than the first one?
You know, what's so funny is, with the first one, it was like very hard. And then the pandemic happened and I just like burst through it. I just like had so much time and like all these projects got delayed. So I was like, oh my God, here it is. Blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, all right, this should be really easy because I already know how to do it with the second one. And it's like, that was not the case at all. This one, I feel like with mental health, I've been in that my whole life. I've been in it 30 years. I remember, you know, my first panic attack when I was in a toddler age. I remember my OCD symptoms from anxiety at such a young age. And I felt like a true expert. With this, my journey's only been 6 years. And I feel like that's no time at all compared to stories I've heard with people, you know, who live with this 80 years, you know, it's different. I can't say it's easier, but it's not easier. Yeah. It's like you said, it's something new. Once you figure something out, something new happens. Like your I can't even say that word. Ophthalmic.
There you go. Neuralgia. Thank you for finishing my sentence there.
Got your brain fog on check, girl. If anyone
exactly. You got it, girl. what can people do to help spread awareness for TN, even if they don't have TN?
Man, you know what's the best is when it comes up in conversation or something, like if we're out with friends or we're at an event or whatever, and if it comes up and someone else in my group can explain it. Like there's something that's so annoying and self-aggrandizing and annoying about having to explain your trauma over and over to people. And so it's so lovely when, like, you know, my friend or my boyfriend or my family can say confidently the word trigeminal neuralgia, Dolorosa, and like tell someone new about it. And, you know, it also takes that pressure off of me when someone talks about it, because when I say it, people are like, oh my God, oh, this sounds awful, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, yeah, all I can do is say it. Yeah, you're right. You know? Yeah. So I think what can people do to help? It's like, even if you don't suffer from it or live with it or manage it, like what can you do to help people who do? Because like facial pain in general, that whole vertical, this whole genre, if you will, of chronic pain really does not get highlighted. You know, we hear a lot about chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or ALS or just things that people know the word of because it's either seen in media or talked about, you know, more commonly. But there are all types of facial pain, you know, diseases and conditions that people have that, you know, I don't know why someone would get involved unless they were personally affected. So that's always like an interesting gate for me to try to open with people, is like, how can they advocate for us? It's like, I don't know, donate money. They probably won't because it's not helping them personally, or, you know, they might only be doing it for like good karma, but like just having an awareness of it at all and chronic pain in general, I think is going to help the community super widespread, because that helps us talk about things like, you know, workplace disability and our rights as partners, as employees, as workers. Like that conversation I don't think gets talked enough about, and just talking about chronic pain in general I think will help that. I think because you know more people have it than they talk about it. And as soon as you say like, oh, I have chronic pain, someone's always like, oh my God, me too. And it's like, oh my God, we have something to bond over. And it's like, you know, I wish we just didn't see it as a weakness. I certainly don't. I can't help myself. I just shout it from the rooftop. So I would say like change your mindset about what it is, and also just learn how to talk about it.
And you have to know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. What you're doing is so empowering. I have had so many warriors personally reach out to me and tell me that you personally encourage them to share their story.
Oh, man.
And to talk about TN with other people. And I think just seeing, you know, you and I have talked about this offline, but seeing someone young and fun and, you know, not sitting in their dark room all the time, and not, you know, not to say that there's anything wrong with that, and that, you know, some days you are like that, and you know, over months, whatever, you need to do what's best for your body. But the point is that you're showing everybody that you can talk about it and continue your daily life and travel. I just this summer was talking about giving up travel, and I saw your picture and I saw your Instagram post saying, fuck chronic pain and holding me back from traveling. I'm not going to let it do it anymore.
Every day that you choose to like get up is like the biggest middle finger to what this disease wants to do to you, or, you know, can't help but do to you. And, you know, I saw what it did to me when I became agoraphobic and a shut-in, and that fearfulness of it. And I still get afraid, you know, like I still get afraid to get on a plane or travel, but doing it and getting through it and surviving it, which I always do, even if I do have a flare, even if I do have pain along the way, getting through it, building that experience and building that confidence is what it takes, is like taking the chance and the risk and like forcing yourself, and start small, you know, go take a weekend trip, drive somewhere so that you feel more in control. Like, just start doing things is what I tell people. And like, you'll never know how you might be with a flare at a restaurant until it happens. And then you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to stand up for yourself. You learn how to excuse yourself. You learn how to get to a safe space mentally. Like, because we're so afraid of even like the pain, we never learn how to manage it in situations that's not like in bed in my dark corner, which like you and I have talked about. We've seen, you know, how those Facebook groups can be. Like, some of them can be really not helpful, to be honest. And I don't blame anybody, because it feels like a safe space to air your deepest, darkest, most fucked up thoughts and grievances, but don't live there. Don't let that be your only source of education and edutainment, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. You gotta know when you're kind of being dragged down into thought and pattern, and recognize that, and, you know, be your own light a little bit.
Exactly. You have a constant theme of staying on top of your TN, and I really like that.
I'm like constantly like holding myself up, and I like truly want to be super, super clear that there are days where I am bedridden and I cancel on people, and people yell at me, and people don't want to work with me because I've canceled on them so many times. Like, don't get me wrong, there are times where I've been like, this has ruined my career, this has ruined my life, this is ruining my relationship, I'm a burden. Like, all of that happens all the time. And it's not like I get over it and now I'm on the other side. It's like, life is a cycle anyways, you know?
Yep.
Trust gets broken and rebuilt. Love gets broken and rebuilt. That's life. And I apply the same thought process to pain. Is like, okay, if it's today, how can I do this today? And again, do what you need to feel okay is like the constant reminder I have, and not feel bad about it. You know, I think I feel really shameful about feeling comfortable. And I think if anything, the pandemic showed a lot of us that what we're kind of what's important to us in our lives. And for me, it's like comfortability, and that I think takes a certain lifestyle. And like, listen, I would never tell anyone to like get up and quit and leave your job, but like sometimes I fucking will. Like, I'm like, if you are in enough pain to where you are not okay going to work and you can't get out of bed, it's like, quit your fucking job, like figure out something else. You're never stuck. You're never defined by one experience in your life. Like, you constantly have the power to change. Your brain is neuroplastic. We know this. Like, you have more power and your brain is more powerful than I think we give ourselves credit for.
I love that. It's so important to, I always say that I'm the only one that has to live with this pain. So why am I catering to all these people around me? They don't have to live with the pain.
That's so good. And it's so true. That's a great quote.
It just doesn't make any sense. So it's totally the, you know, advocating for you 150% from the beginning, and you can't feel bad about it, like you said.
No. Yeah. There's a lot of shame in just chronic pain and illness community in general. And then what happens is, you know, we shame ourselves into being sicker and sicker and more uncomfortable. And then, you know, I used to see it as a personality flaw, but now I'm like, thank God I'm this way, where I just can't shut the fuck up. I just can't stop talking about stuff. I just can't stop self-advocating. I can't, you know, I'm not shy. I'm pretty shameless. I don't have a lot of shame. So for me, I think it's been a positive aspect of my personality to be vocal about it. And so that's, I mean, to hear people want to talk about it because they hear other people talking about it, it's like, that's fucking amazing to me, because that's been the only reason why I think I've gotten this far in my life, you know, not to be dark, but like, hello. Well, what do you want from me?
Exactly. Those types of things make it feel like every day that you're getting up is worth it. Like you said, getting up is so hard every day. Just pulling yourself out of bed and putting on your clothes and brushing your teeth. So having moments like that where you know that you're inspiring people because you're sharing your struggles and your experiences is uplifting for me.
Yeah. And you don't have to have followers to do that, you know, like you can just do that for yourself and for your people that you live with, or for your kids or your loved ones, or your family. It's like that's, I saw this quote the other day that my manager posted, and I think it's actually pretty applicable to chronic pain, but it's like, they talked about anxiety being rooted in fear, right? And like pain, chronic pain or illness is rooted in like pain. And to do anything while you are still in pain, to do literally anything, to open your eyes, to get up, to do any of that is like the bravest thing you can do. And that's what I try to remind myself when I'm feeling those like really like useless blobbed moments where I'm just like, I don't feel like doing today. Maybe that's the most I can do today is not do today. And like, that's still, and that's still a brave thing to do when you live with, you know, what we deal with.
I love that. That's so important to keep telling yourself that just the simple things, and they seem simple to everybody else, but they're so empowering for us to get done, that, and reminding ourselves how strong we are and brave we are to get those things done.
Yeah, see, even now I'm like, I can say this on the live because I'm on live with you. It's like, I was just getting some shocks under my chin, which is like always an annoying place because it feels like it comes from under my tongue.
Oh.
And I'm like, that's annoying, but I'm going to keep hanging out and talking. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, if I were to go like, oh no, like here comes the shock and like, oh, this is going to be worse. It's like, I know what this feels like now. It like, see, I know it went up into my eye a little bit, and now I'm like, okay.
So exactly. Like you're used to it. You know how to run with it, roll with it. You know, people always say that if it's the worst pain, then why aren't you on the ground every time you have a shock?
It's like, do you want me to be like, how do I have this the right way for people to understand, and not giving a shit about what other people think, I think is a large part of that.
Totally. I mean, yeah.
It's tougher for people where if you have people in your family or your life or your like doctor team that don't believe you, that's when I would like give the advice of like removing yourself from those people or those relationships or those doctors. Like that's when I would say it's an unhealthy, you know, gaslighting situation where they don't believe your pain. You start to question yourself. You start to go like, am I making this up? Do I really have really bad pain as much as I think of? Or like, how can I learn to reframe it? You know, like I think I talked about this with you on the podcast when you so graciously came on last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. Time's right
it
now.
Goes too fast.
Yeah. There's a book called The Way Out that I'm reading that talks about how like they've done these studies where someone can come into the ER with, you know, wear and tear on their back, right? Like humans experience wear and tear. We get in accidents. We, you know, can play sports, we grow up, whatever. And it's like some people can come through the emergency room and have a torn, you know, ligament or a compressed disc or a herniated disc and be completely fine and standing and walking and like never experience pain. And then other people literally have to call an ambulance to be able to get out of the bed, to be able to go to the hospital to see that they have a herniated disc. And this book is really looking at like, why do some people respond more to pain than others? And it's been really interesting, and figuring out what's called like the pain fear cycle is like, we fear it. So our brain, you know, has felt it before, so it turns on that light again and it keeps that light going on, and then the pain comes and it's like a cycle, right?
Yep.
And you know, I talk again about like ketamine and MDMA and these different things that can kind of like turn off that pain fear cycle to tell your body like, it's okay. That's not to say the light won't ever turn back on again, but for now, to try and get out of a little bit of pain, what can we do? So that's like always, that's a book that I'm still getting through that I just find like super fascinating because I get pissed. I'm like, why am I those fucking people
exactly
more than others, right? And it's like, I gotta figure out why.
Exactly.
I'm Gemini moon and rising, so my like I soak up information.
I will have to check that book out.
Yeah. It's gonna piss you off, I can tell you that. You'll be like, what the fuck? Basically, this guy's just telling me like something's wrong with me, and it's not. Like that's kind of like how he gets through it, is like, it's actually not you. There's so many other factors that are subconscious that are literally you have no control over that explain it. And I think that helps me understand it better, you know?
Yeah.
When I take it off of myself, because it feels so much like
my problem, what I'm doing makes it worse. It's that shame, that self-shame thing that I think this has helped relieve a little bit of.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Kelsey, we are just wrapping up our hour here. It went by so quick.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for using your celebrity platform to spread awareness for trigeminal neuralgia. Thank you for spending the evening with me at the worst time of the day for your pain. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but everyone's here at the end of the day, off work and relaxing. It's like, you know, it's exactly what I talked about. It's like, you do it because now I've been able to have this conversation with you, and like, stop thanking me. You're the one providing that. You're doing the work just as much as I am. And like, everybody that's been here to even listen and comment and care, like, that's the real things. Like, anything I can do, always, you know, I constantly tell people, like, DM me, share your story, let me know, like, anything I can do to help TN people. I will always try to make time to answer questions, and thank you for doing this.
That means so much. And I know this won't be our last conversation. We have lots of TN advocacy work ahead of us.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelsey. I am so honored to know you and have you as a friend.
Back at you, babe. We'll talk soon.
Have a good night. Thanks, everybody. Stay strong.